by the rivers of Babylon. Yeah, we sat down and we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying.
Hallelujah, hallelujah. Blessed be the creator of heaven and earth, our holy Father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Blessed be his holy name forever and ever. Thank you all for joining us once again on this Tanakh review. My name is Zurishaddai, one of the teachers of Congregation BINAH, CHOKMAH, located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York. Giving due respect to the living God, Yehudah, the one who woke us all up this morning, and the one who continues to sustain us, who continues to bless us with life, food, clothing, and shelter. We all must say hallelujah, giving glory to his high and holy name. Today, we will be reviewing or going over highlighting, or Nasik will be highlighting. We're starting a new book in the actual Tanakh, in the Torah, and that's Bamidbar, which is Numbers, and he will be reviewing the first Sidra, or the first portion, which is Bamidbar. And also, we'll be going over Ecclesiastes chapter 4, and I hope that everyone gets some understanding out of what is being brought forth. And remember, if you have any questions, please leave them in the chat or leave them in the comments. Your questions are very important. No question is dumb, as some people will say. Every question is valid, and you could leave them right on the comment, and that way we are able to get back with you and communicate with you and answer your questions. Nasik will be able to answer your questions. So without any further ado, I'll pass it on to one of my teachers and one of my mentors, even Nasik Zurishaddai ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
Great, Baruch Hashem. First of all, I'd like to give praises to the Supreme Judge of the universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, and due respects to the platform I'm on, D.C.B channel platform, spiritually Chief Prince Uriel being Saskar, the host Chief Uzael, to the Princes, Chief Kohanim, Rabbinate, Motorim, brothers and sisters and visitors to the channel. I greet you all in the tongue of my forefathers. Shalom Aleichem, and an early Shabbat Shalom. And I'd like to start off with Adonai Septadi Dakufia Ichi Lateaka, O Lord, down my lips, and my mouth should declare thy praise. And we'll be starting a new portion of the fourth book of the Chumash, fourth book, which is the book of Numbers, known as in Hebrew Bamidbar. And it's coincidentally, be also doing the fourth chapter of Kohelet, Ecclesiastes. So it was just, seemed like one of the things where I just happened to be going over and reviewing the fourth, or highlighting some points in the fourth book. And I'll be continuing on the fourth chapter of Kohelet, which is interesting. As we know, in this particular season, the book of Numbers, Bamidbar, and the Citrus begins in the first chapter of the book of Numbers, and it goes to the fourth chapter, the 20th verse. That's where it concludes at. And the Torah that goes along with it is Hosea, which starts in the second chapter and goes from the first verse to the 22nd verse. So we have, and it seems to be, numbers always come up somewhere close, and most times just before Shavuot, this particular book, when we have an order going on. And as we look into this particular portion, it's about counting. Now, the original name for the book is Chumash HaPekudim. HaPekudim, which is the fifth counting, and it's taking it from every time the nation was counted, even with the small group that Yaakov had went down into Egypt with the 70 souls that's enumerated in the book of Genesis. And this is like the fifth time they're being counted within the scriptures as a people. And here we have some unique significance in counting. And when we learn about this here particular portion, which is interesting, is the time and the place that it takes place. And a lot of history that we read, we read about, had we went through some great moments, ups and down moments until we reached this particular point in time. Now, what is also unique about this is that this is the first time, and that I know of in recorded history, that you actually have a census of a nation. I can't think of any place in antiquity we had that much of a census concerning the nation. Now, grant you, like in modern times, you have a census where they count men and women and children and indiscriminately, how many people is actually in a household. But this particular census, mind you, is for a particular purpose, and more so, it's not for the purpose of man seeing how many people he could rule over, or how many people are subjugated to them, or to figure out how much their income going to be. But and also, it's not about showing, learning how much responsibility they might have with a census. This is for the service of God, and therefore it's only a select group that's being counted in the nation, for the service of God. And other people that's not counted in the census are the support group for those people who's being counted. And the ones that's being counted is responsible for the people that's not counted. So it's a hand-in-hand situation that's being done here. So, but I like to open up and bring out a few points in here. I'm just going to highlight some of the things in the book of Numbers, and one of the points is it says, "And the Lord spake unto Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, in the tabernacle of the congregation, on the first day of the second month in the second year, after they were come out of the land of Egypt." All right. So now we have a command. We have a place. All right. And we have a time. All right. And also, we have basically the subject matter in here, which is in the congregation. In the second verse, it says, "Take ye some of all the congregation of the children of Israel, after their families, by the house of their fathers, with the number of their names, every male by their polls, from 20 years old and upward, all that are able to go forth to war in Israel. Thou and Aaron shall number them by their armies, and with you there shall be a man of every tribe, everyone ahead of his fathers, everyone ahead of the house of his fathers. And these are the names of the men that shall stand with you." And then it goes on and explain that. So now I like to focus on a couple of things here. I'm just highlighting a few points in the particular book of Numbers, but it's some interesting things that I will pass over, that those that will, do a more in-depth study will be enlightened to some very, very interesting events in history, and also, gain a greater understanding about the time situation within this particular period of time. So now, since this is the 5th book of numbering, and one of the things I do bring out is that it's done on Rosh Chodesh in the 2nd year. All right, and this is the 2nd year after we left Egypt. And what is so important is that we told Pharaoh, well, actually, Moses, asked Pharaoh to let the people go 3 days' journey in the wilderness to sacrifice to the Creator. Now, we know we left Egypt after the plagues that hit Egypt, and it was on our way exiting out of Egypt, I should say. We stayed in Egypt for a while after that, but we're on the way exiting out of Egypt. We left after the Pesach Seder, after the Passover offering that we had within our homes. That night we was called, and it was being thrust out of the land of Egypt, and we borrowed from the Egyptians and was on our way exiting out. And what is unique is that, so now we have a lot of events that goes on. We had the manna going on 30 days later, pretty much. After we done crossed the, Yam Suf, complain about water, complain about food. And also, this is after, the great revelation at Mount Sinai, which we all should be counting, approaching this particular time we call Shavuot, which is yet in well, by the time you'll see it, it'd be this review would be after the time of Shavuot would take place. But we count to that time where God wanted Moses to bring us to that very spot where he had his encounter with the Creator. So we learned some things, where Moses was when he got that first encounter. And that we learned that a lot of laws and stuff is given at that time, not over a period of 40 years. A few laws was instituted in the 40th year, but all the things we need to live and grow as a nation were instituted at the time, when we reached Mount Sinai, that was given to Moses. Moses knew all that at that time, after the 40 days up. So what is interesting is that when we think about that, we done built the golden calf. Moses had wound up breaking the first tablets within that the time we came out of Egypt. So he went up, prayed for the people after he had, a few people was, slain in the sin of the golden calf. And then, and the other number was also in this particular portion of the book called Ecclesiastes, which starts around the 30th chapter of Exodus, Shemot. And when he winds up coming, down and destroyed, and seeing the sin of the golden calf, he destroyed the tablets, wind up, a few people, 3,000 people had died in that sin. Then he had to go ahead and pray, return to God, and appeal to God on behalf of the people. So that's another 40 days he's up there. After that, he's seen the glory of God. God told him to go back down, bring up a couple more tablets of stone, like into the first. And God said in that particular portion that he would write on them second set of tablets. So he's up there for another 40 days, so basically 120 days. Then he comes back down. We have, different things going on. They say traditionally came back down around Yom Kippur. We start after Yom Kippur, after the Shabbat, we start working with the Mishkan, the tabernacle. The tabernacle was erected in the 2nd year. So that means it was a lot of stuff went on in that first year that we had already been, redeemed from the nation of Egypt. And yet we still haven't arrived at the place where we need to go. So you got to ask a lot of questions in reference to that, and saying, what took us so long to go such a short distance? And that should be resonating in a lot of people's minds. What took us so long to go such a short distance? And we know when Yaakov was sent during the famine, his sons down there to pick up food, they ain't gonna take a year to come back for food for the people in their family, you know. So we know that the distance don't take a year to get from where the land of Canaan to Egypt. We know that automatically, even by today's standards. So now, when we think about that long period of time, when we got the date when the tabernacle was erected, and it's erected and functioning fully on Rosh Chodesh. So if it's functioning on Rosh Chodesh of the second year, which is the month of Aviv, some books might, some people might refer to it as Nisan, and which is in the springtime as well. That's when the tabernacle was actually erected, and also that's when we perform a lot of first dedication and offerings. And it was already at the time when Aaron and his sons were completely ordained, functioning as Kohanim priests. So we got that timeline. We know that on during that particular month, we had each prince bringing a dedication. Excuse me. Oh, I have no control on that right now. I'll try to get that. I'll pause just for a moment. All right. We had each prince during that particular time when the tabernacle was erected to bring an offering, a dedication offering for the tabernacle, and on their day. So the first one was from the tribe of Judah, the Prince Nachshon, etc. So we're figuring 12 princes, not counting the tribe of Levi. All right, 12 tribes bringing up a dedication on the tabernacle in the month of Aviv, one per day. So that means we don't reach the 12th of the month of Aviv. We have read that they observed the Passover in the wilderness, the first Passover that they observed after they left the land of Egypt. So we have read that already. So I'm just trying to paint a timeline so we can understand about the journeys that we made. So when they wind up finishing that, then 2 days later, they got it get ready to offer up the Passover sacrifice. So we know they observed Pesach one time in that 1 year, after they left Egypt, which is the second year, as a memorial for the first Pesach. So we know they observed that, so that's what's given. And then we also know other instances, also at that time, we know a second Passover was instituted because some people could not observe the first Passover because of uncleanness by the dead. So we understand, we know that. Also, some of the miracles that took place is that we know when they observed that first Pesach, what we can safely gather is that from the time they left Egypt to the time they reached that particular point in time to observe that first Pesach, that we can safely assume that there was no child born within that particular period of time of travel, simply because everybody had to be circumcised on the actual Pesach Seder that they observed at the most highest time that they had, the sanctuary, which is the Mishkan, the tabernacle, functioning. We know years later, they said those that was born in the wilderness was not circumcised, but all those that came out of Egypt were. So, and that's the only Pesach that we read about that they ever observed. For whatever reason, that's another story. You could talk to your teachers and stuff, leaders of every congregation, ask these unique questions. But given that, going forward, now we're talking, and there's a lot of questions you can ask, but I'm not going to highlight everything, about, the leavened bread and all that kind of stuff when you eat manna and you have manna that you're using. So it's a lot of questions that come up, what did they actually eat in that Pesach? If you're only getting manna, you're not growing wheat, you're not growing grain, and you're not, and so therefore, what was the kind of bread you eat? But it's not focusing on the bread in that sense there. It focuses on the sacrifices. And how do we know that? Because we find out that the ones that couldn't make it, they have a sacrifice instituted within the same month of YAH, where they must observe the sacrifice, and eat it with all, according to the ritual that's set up. But they don't have to eat unleavened bread for the rest of the week. They don't have to clean the house out for the rest of the week. So they focus on the sacrifice as a memorial for that particular time. So we learn all that from this opening verses that is given here in the book of Bamidbar. And what we also learn in there is that if it's on Rosh Chodesh that we have the numbering, that means Moses start immediately. And Moses and Aaron is charged with it and with the heads of the household. And what we find that's interesting in that particular portion is that the household, the fathers of the household, that means the leaders, these princes, there was princes over thousands of thousands. We know they left Egypt with a round number of 600,000 men. They have to be a man from every tribe to actually count on oversee the count over the tribe. So Prince Nachshon had to be over the tribe of Yehudah when they was counting to say who's part of the family, who's part of their tribe. So it's the leader of the tribe to determine that this actual individual is part of the tribe, because mind you now, we still had a mixed multitude that came out with Egypt. So 600,000 men of war and a mixed multitude. So if the mixed multitude is not your servant immediately, they just tag-alongs, then you wouldn't count the tag-alongs. And so that's so important to say who is part of my tribe, part of my nation, as opposed to who's a tag-along or hanging out with us. So this is some of the most important facets to deal with. And we learned a couple more other things when we're dealing with, excuse me one moment. Let me just try to straighten up some stuff. Excuse me for that little bit of delay. I had to try to cut down some of the distractions. So as I was saying, so they had to know who's part of the tribe and who's not, because we had the mixed multitude that was actually traveling with us. And then what we also learned is that each one had their particular standard bearers, positions where they're going to be camped around the tabernacle. But I want to bring in the word that's used here. It used the word when it comes down to in the third verse in this particular chapter. It used the term for counting. That's pretty much a unique term here. And it says, Seud et Rosh Kol Adat B'nai Yisrael. All right. So the word Seud is also means to lift the head. All right. And it could be in a good way and a bad way, you know. So in the count, that the term they use is Seud, which is to lift the heads and count. But as we travel back a little bit, we find that first time the word is actually used is in when Joseph describes the actual dream. He interprets the dream for the butler while he was in prison. I mean, for the baker, excuse me, while he was in prison, and he used the term, and Isa Paro et Rosheka. All right, so Isa Paro et Rosheka, Aleka, which means from and Pharaoh will lift up your head, from off your head, from upon your head. So so it could means one, lift up in the sense of glorify an individual or decapitating an individual. All right. So when they say lift up the heads of the children of Israel, it's for what purpose? And this purpose is to glorify them because they're going to be able to fight and go to war for the Creator. Now, we have an age bracket of 20 and upward, all right, that's able to go to war. They did not set a limit on age. They set a limit on ability. And that's what we must understand. When the count was made here, it wasn't, I'm 72 years old, so don't count me, or 80 years old, don't count me. It's I'm able to be utilized by the Creator for His purpose and will. And that's one of the most dynamic things is that, He didn't say if you was 18 and 19. And we know that the count took, they started in the beginning of the month, Rosh Chodesh. And when they started in Rosh Chodesh, that it didn't take a day to count over 500,000 people. That took basically quite a bit of a while to count over 1 million people and bring their report and add up the reports. All right, so it took a while. So a lot of times when we look at, and we should ask ourselves continually, are we able to be utilized by the Creator? Are we able to stand up for the Creator? And at any age, and be able to say, I'm willing to stand before my Creator and fight, serve Him. That's one of the great things about this here. So not only to go to war, we think of war just fist fighting, but also war is going to be psychological, spiritual, in that sense. So it's not just being able to say, well, I could throw hands, I could throw kicks. It's about, am I able to go ahead and confront, whatever God sent me to do. Abraham got his first job at 75. Moses got his job at 80. Aaron was 83 when he got his job to be able to go ahead and stand up for the Creator. And we read where later on in history that Joshua and Caleb was in their 80s when they went into the land. And Caleb made a statement that I'm still just as in good shape as I was 40 years ago to be able to go up and get the land that God promised for my people. So the thing is that if God give you the vision, He makes the provision. And therefore, are you able and willing to go and fight God's battle? This is one of the most important things that, if you don't take away anything else, don't count yourself out. When you first qualification is just being old enough. That's your first qualification, and then, the selection is other people looking and seeing if you're able because Moses and Aaron and the leader of your tribe, God say, not only you part of my tribe, but you able to stand up for God. So that is a strong, dynamic viewpoint there. All right. So also, now I don't want to spend too much time in this because Ecclesiastes Kohelet is not that really that long. It's a continuation from the third chapter, actually. So I want to move forward and look at that we have a thing we call standard bearers. I mean, and when they had to be pitched around. In the second chapter it says, and the Lord spoke unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, the children of Israel pitched pitched by their fathers' houses, every man with their own standard, according to the ensigns, a good way off shall they pitch round about the tent of meeting. That means, oh yeah, you're gonna be close. Your position gonna be around the tabernacle. So our whole focus in life should be about the sanctuary, the house, where God would cause his name to be called, or where he will commune with us. So we all should be close to that, not just physically, but spiritually in that sense. So, and we all got, and it said, it takes the whole nation to surround it. And it said, according to their standard, that means you have a certain unique qualification that's given to you, and I'm just going to speed by this a little bit just to save some time. And to tell you that you had 3 tribes in the south, and the head tribe in the south was Yehudah. So you had Yehudah as the lead standard bearer in the south. And they had Issachar and Zebulun in the south. And then, in the east, excuse me. In the east, I keep saying south. And then when we get to the south, you have Reuben, Shimon, which is Simeon, and you had Gad in the south. And Reuben was the standard bearer of the head tribe in that particular position. And then it's talking about, and this also tells you about how you march, and then well, let me just read the 17th verse of 17th verse of the second chapter. It says, then the tent of meeting with the camps of the Levites shall set forward in the midst of the camps. As they encamp, so shall they set forward, every man in his place by their standards. That means right in there, if the tabernacle had to make a move, that we are actually keeping it surrounded in the midst of us. So you got protection on both sides of the tabernacle, all sides of the tabernacle, as it proceeds forward. And then you have on the west, you have Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin. So, and Ephraim was the controlling tribe in the west side. And in the north tribe, you had Dan. Then after Dan, you had Asher, and you had Naphtali. So that's where they were standardized, and you get the numbers that's there. But I just want to read this last portion, and 32nd verse of second chapter. It said, and these are they that were numbered of the children of Israel by their fathers' houses, all that were a number of the camps according to their hosts. And it gives you the number. All right. And they're going to read the which is 603,550. And then did the children of Israel according to all that the Lord commanded Moses. So they pitched by their standards, and so they set forward, each one according to its families and according to its father's house. All right. Now, before I go into the third chapter, just a little bit, just to highlight something in here, is that we learn that we never had an issue at this point of fully infighting. A lot of hostility right after, and this is after the tabernacle is set up. So while working on the tabernacle, we got to think from the time that Moses brought the second tablets down, which is estimated around Yom Kippur, to the tabernacle being erected and dedicated, the first Pesach, and then we go into the Rosh Chodesh of the second month, and the counting. And then they say, this how you're going to be positioned around a place. So before that, how was they positioned before the Mishkan was built? Where was the armies of the Judites? Where was the armies of the Gadites? Where was the armies of Reuben, or Dan, or Ephraim and Manasseh and the rest of them? Where was they? Where was their armies? How was they marching when they left Egypt? We don't know, but we know they wasn't in a position that was, even though they said they left out by their armies, by their, by their standards, as a host. We don't know. And then what is a standard? What is the ensign? And we notice also there's no fighting or bickering from that point on, even until this very time of the count. And then when they told who's going to sit in the south, who's going to sit in the west, who's going to sit in the north, who's going to sit in the east, it was never an issue about where they are placed. Midrash gives a reason to say, that when they carried the coffin of Jacob, that's the way they was stationed. That Joseph didn't carry the coffin because he was next to the king, and the tribe of Levi didn't carry the coffin simply because there was actually destined to be a major service for God, which Levi means, the word Levi means to join, and you're joining people to God. So that's just one of the things that they say midrashically. But I know one thing, we all could safely note that no one had an argument about where they were stationed. And they had standards and ensigns, emblems to represent each of their tribes. So that's very important to understand. All right. Then we find out that I want to read just the beginning of this. Now, these are the generation of Aaron and Moses, in the day that the Lord spoke with Moses in Mount Sinai. And these are the names of the sons of Aaron: Nadab, the firstborn, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. These are the names of the sons of Aaron, the priest, that were anointed, whom he consecrated to minister in the priest's office. And Nadab and Abihu died before the Lord when they offered strange fire before the Lord in the wilderness of Sinai, and they had no children. And Eleazar and Ithamar ministered in the priest's office in the presence of Aaron their father. I'm just going to start. I read that whole thing to bring out and highlight a couple of things. One, you find here that the Creator, talking about these are the generation of Aaron and Moses, and yet we read that Aaron's name preceded Moses. Sometimes Moses' name came first, Aaron's name became first. To show that they both had equal authority, or position, or not equal recognition. Sometimes Aaron was greater in certain areas, and sometimes Moses was greater in certain areas. But they both was an equally important leaders to the nation of Israel and servants to the Creator. So, which hence brings about another story that could come up later, which I might be addressed that same situation and highlight a different, a slightly another point in regarding to that. But we know that Moses had two sons, and that's Gershon and Eleazar. Yet we don't read about their names here, and we knew about those children before we even learned about before we learned about Aaron's children. So and since we learned about those children before we learned about Aaron's children, what we actually learn more is that those children didn't experience the oppression in Egypt. Moses' children, they didn't experience being pursued by the Egyptians. They didn't experience the the crossing of the Yam Suf. They didn't experience the being brought out on dry land and being fed with manna. They didn't have those experiences. They didn't experience the great revelation that comes up in Sinai. So since they didn't experience that, they're not counted in this area here. Though we know they was brought back later on by their father-in-law, by Moses' father-in-law. So the thing is that there's Aaron's biological children, but Moses taught Aaron and his children about how to be a priest and serve God. So usually when you teach somebody, you become like a father figure to them. So that's why it's mentioned as Moses being, that part of his generation as well, because those will carry more, the descendants of Aaron will carry more of the legacy. Being a father is having a legacy left behind you, a good father. And Moses' biological sons, you don't read much good, behind them coming through our history. But you read some of the great sons of the first high priest Aharon, and Moses had the impact on that's everlasting. So I just want to bring that particular point out there in reference to it. Now, when we talk about banners and ensigns, one of the most important areas that we talk about when we talk about banners and ensigns is that what is the standard that I live by? Every place that exists amongst every community has what they call bylaws, and they have a theme or characteristics of what they try to teach and push in every area. So it's a characteristics, but whether you say you're from D.C.B, you may be from Shema, you might be from Shalom, you might be BINAH, you might be Bethel or Shalom Ben Zakim, whatever place you got, you have your unique character that's being emulated from those particular spots. So the same thing with the 12 tribes. Jacob, when he gave a blessing and told them about what would happen in the last days, and Moses, when he told them what's going to happen when he blessed them on his leaving, on the end, they had, a characteristic that was unique. And so they banners, they had to have a flag already. So it wasn't something to create one. They had one. They already had something that was identifying this group of people, like a badge or a banner. So the creator never had to tell them to create one. They already must have had to exist for them to say, by your standard. You already set it up. It isn't something that I'm telling you to make. You already had this in mind. Now, Yaakov described what your standard should be in your position. So these are some of the things that we learn from this particular area. Now, in the last point I want to bring out is about the Levites that counted, and they counted from the age of a month old to a month old, every Levite. So now they had several different counts. So the Levites are not counted with the nation of Israel, and they had three different sections, and they talk about the duties in this particular chapter of etc. So if they're talking about the particular duties of the Levites, and they count them, and in three major branches or tribes of the Levites, or you could say four if we count the Kohanim. Because Aaron and them and his sons, they became a unique tribe within themselves. You had, if we're going to say a priest tribe, then that was a priest tribe, and they were stationed in the east, the priest tribe. All right. Then you had the Gershonites, Then you had the that was stationed in the west, and then you had the Kohathites, they were stationed in the south, and you had the Merarites that stationed in the north, and each one had a unique operation concerning the tabernacle. So when we look at all those different areas there, that the Kohanim, you say, well, it's not that many people in our descendants of Aaron, but it became the Kohanim is actually a particular unique tribe amongst the tribe of Levi. And their position was right there by the opening, because the tabernacle had only one opening. and that's in the east. You know, that was the opening, you know, the Holy of Holies was stationed towards the west. All right. So it brings out a lot of different things, and each one had a particular job to deal with. All right. So, and they couldn't transfer jobs. So for those who might want to read later on and go over it, it's, you know, it'd be very beneficial, you know, for them to go over it. I'm just going to focus on one particular branch. And I'm going to skip over and go to the last end of this particular portion. All right. Which is, well, two things. The Levites' position was that they're supposed to replace the firstborn of Israel. And we know that's one of the main things about the counting too, and about the redemption for war. And they talk about a newborn baby is worth 5 shekels. A guy going to war, a half a shekel. But yet, it goes back to redemption of the firstborn. So now what we learn here in this particular portion, that this is the first time a firstborn is actually ever redeemed in our history. So what we learn is that prior to this, you know, a guy be a firstborn, he just a firstborn. That's it. God told us in Egypt, all the firstborn are mine. But only in this particular portion, you read that a firstborn is actually being redeemed. And so this is the first time it was ever processed. And why? Because we didn't have no Mishkan before that. So this, we have a novel thing going on at this particular time, in this particular portion of Bamidbar. And then the word Bamidbar is something, the last thing I'm going to speak on, I'm just going to have to let it go for a moment, is the word Bamidbar itself. The Bamidbar means, you know, in the wilderness and the desert, but the root word is daber, which means to speak. And when we look at the word daber means to speak, then you say, well, okay, in the desert, I mean, there's a lot of talk going on. We had the good, the bad, the ugly, all going on in the desert. But the project was that we were supposed to lead to go to the land early. And within that beginning of the second year, we were prepared to go into the land. What derailed it was after the count. So we know how, we got an estimation of how the count was finished, because we know the time that the so-called spies were sent out to go ahead and look over the land. So by doing the math, we get an estimation of the count. We know when the count started. We know when the spies left to go and search out the land. We know it was their recommendation, and Moses agreed with them. So God said, go for yourself. So we find a lot of information when we pay closer details to this particular portion of Exodus. God didn't have, he meant to try to, God wanted us to get to the land quickly once we was prepared with a constitution and laws to live by, but yet we put the brakes on by saying, Moses, let's send some people over there and check it out. Moses said, well, let me ask God about that. And God says, send for yourself. That's how we get the portion. Shalak lekah. Send for yourself. So when he sent them, and Moses had to admit 40 years later, it sounds good to me. So that means we convinced Moses because it sounded good. That's why he brought it to God. But Moses sometimes didn't listen as careful as great as teachers he was. He didn't listen that careful when God said, send for yourself. Say, send for myself. That gives us an idea. Say, maybe I should have put the brakes on. If God told me to send for me, then it's something that's being behind that. I should just hold off. So even great leaders sometimes can miss the actual true assignment. And Moses brings up that flaw 40 years later. So I hope, so we know we had enough. 22,300 Levites, and only and it was 22,273 firstborns of Israel, and we know that the Levites only redeemed 2,200, and the other 22,000 rather, and the other 273 had to pay 5 shekels of silver for the redemption. And I always say, well, how did Moses choose who paid the 273? And who was redeemed by a Levite? And so the Levite was counted several ways, but from one own to all those that was alive at the time. And then we know that it was 300 Levites over that should have covered it, but they had to be firstborns themselves. That's one of the viewpoints. And being a firstborn themselves, you can't redeem a firstborn. All right. So those are some of the things I highlight there. I always ask people to go over this whole particular sidra because the beginning of most of our major history exists in the book of Bamidbar. And like I said, the word Bamidbar means words. The root word is the words of speaking. And like you might say, Atam et Bed Ivri, do you speak Hebrew? All right, we might say stuff like that. Or Daber, speak. And a lot of talk went on throughout the wilderness, good and bad. More bad than good, but it was some good, but some bad talk that went on. So sometimes, and we was actually the closest to each other, and the Haftorah that goes along with it. That's Hosea. One of the things that we learned from the book of Hosea, in this particular area here, is that we talk about a count in the future. The last count for the nation of Israel will not be a number that we could come up with. Because it's going to be like the sands of the sea for multitude, so we won't be able to count it. And then after we go through, and God is going to bring us back and round us up, not because we were so righteous, but because of His promise and covenant, and we have a change of heart, and He's going to speak peaceful to us and say in the wilderness, in the desert. So that's what more words going to be transferred, between us and God. He's going to speak to our hearts. And one of the things that we learned from that, He said, you would call me, Ishi and no more Baali, my husband, as opposed to my master. Because my master, if you're my master, that don't necessarily mean I love you, but I serve you. But if you call Ishi my husband, then we calling God our husband, then that means we have a love affair that's going on that's unique. And we become family. So the last 2 verses in that Haftorah I'd like to bring out, is 21st and the 22nd verse of the 2nd chapter of Hosea, is where they get the binding of the tefillin from. These words that they say when they wrap the tefillin around the middle finger. And the words, where Rashti li le'olam, where Rashti li b'sadek u'mishpat b'kesed u'b'chachmim. And then the last one is where Rashti li be'emunah v'yata'ad et Adonai. So, the translation is that I will betroth you unto me forever. Yea, I will betroth you unto me in righteousness and in judgment and in loving kindness and in mercy. I will even betroth you unto me in faithfulness, and thou shalt know the Lord. So this is what's important here. We got to know who we're serving. So we're going to go straight to the book of Kohelet. I know I've glossed over a lot of stuff here, but please go back over and talk over with your teachers and stuff like that, and ask different insights, because a lot of information is given in this particular chapter that I haven't even begun to scratch the surface on. So the book of Kohelet, and the book of Kohelet is a continuation. The 4th chapter is actually a continuation from the 3rd. So we're going to start from the 3rd chapter just to bring it to full scale, the 21st verse of the 3rd chapter, and then go into the 4th chapter to show that's continuation. So if you got it, Chief, you can begin.
We're in the book of Kohelet. We're in chapter 3, verse 21. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Who knows the spirit of man, whether it goeth upward, and the spirit of the beast, whether it goeth downward to the earth? Wherefore I perceive that there is nothing better than that a man should rejoice in his works, for that is his portion. For who shall bring him to see what shall be after him?
All right, all right. So he decided on something, and this was Solomon supposed to have concluded. But did he really conclude on his thoughts? Now we're going to start in the 4th chapter.
Chapter 4, Ecclesiastes. It reads, But I returned and considered all the oppressions that are done under the sun. And behold, the tears of such as were oppressed, and they had no comforter. And on the side of their oppressors there was power, but they had no comforter.
Hold it right there. All right. So he say, I reached a conclusion. Now, this is the wisest man that ever exists. I reached a conclusion, but another thought entered my head. Another dismal thought that entered my head. After I talked about you enjoying the fruits of your labor. So he thought that was the end. But he said, nah, it's something else that came up now as I think about it. So usually I used to give an example of some answers is mostly given when you refuse to think about a question any further. So Solomon came up with an answer. Then he said, oh no, I got to think about this question a little bit more, because I have a problem here, and the problem is that's what but means. What I said before, I need to change this around a little bit. That's what it is. All right, but we're going to roll on a little bit from here and see what else we come up with.
Verse 2, it reads, Wherefore I praise the dead that are already dead more than the living that are yet alive. But better than they both is he that have not yet been, who have not seen the evil work that is done under the sun.
All right. So better than both, and than he that had not been. All right. Because the thing is that when you're alive, life is a real adventure. It's a roller coaster ride with twists and turns and ups and downs. I was saying as we travel through the wilderness, and we have a sidra in the book of Deuteronomy called Maaseh, which is journeys. The 42 stops was not the goal. It was the lessons. The goal was to get into the land. All right. So the thing is that a lot of times we focus on the goal, but you should focus on the goal. But on your pursuit to the goal, you must learn valuable life lessons. And this is what Solomon's saying, that the other people, the one that's dead, you don't have to worry about any more lessons to learn. And the one that have not been, haven't even, have to worry about the ups and downs and twists and turns. All right. But should that be the absolute, journey that we just die and say, okay, I'm finished with it, or not be born and not even be, enlightened by it? But let's read a little bit further. 4 first.
Verse 4, it reads, Again I considered all labor and all excelling in work, that it is a man's rivalry with his neighbor. This also is vanity and a striving after wind. The fool foldeth his hands together and eateth his own flesh.
That means right in there, that a person doesn't want to work. I'll just focus on that part on the 5th verse. The person doesn't want to work. You fold your hands together, and you eat on his own flesh. That means you're idle. You're not doing anything. All right. So, but he started by considering, all the labor that, and all excelling in his work. But when you work in your work, are you competing with your neighbor? And we say keeping up with the Joneses. Make sure outstep me, outpace me. All right. Or are you just saying I'm working enough to enjoy life, as we go through life? Or you trying to say, well, so and so got this, maybe I need to have that. Continue. And this is 6th verse.
Verse 6, it reads, Better is a handful of quietness than both the hands full of labor and striving after wind.
Keep going. All right.
Then I returned and saw vanity under the sun. There is one that is alone, and he have not a second. Yea, he have neither son nor brother, yet is there no end of all his labor, neither is his eye satisfied with riches. For whom then do I labor, and bereave my soul of pleasure? This also is vanity, yea, it is a grievous business.
All right there. In other words, it's one that worked real hard, And he said, "Look, I'm trying to outpace everybody, you know. But then after I'm accomplished this, I need to get more. I need to get more." We had the saying, "The rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer," you know. So it'd be a contest on both ends, in that area. But now it's focused on a guy that's, I need to gain this, I need to gain that. I seen a thing on a video when Will Smith said that he done got to the point where since he could buy anything he want, there's nothing he want to buy. Can you imagine that? There's nothing he want to buy. And he said, that's bad because I still got money. I still got a lot of this going on. And yet I got this money just piling up, building up. And there's nothing else I really want to buy because I got everything I really want and anything I could think of that I would want. And now I'm depressed, And he said, I wish everybody could get to that stage. Now, I don't know if, I mean, I like to get close to it myself, personally, but, see how I feel, but that would be a traumatic, thing where you can say, okay, I got, it's like some people walk in and they may have maybe 1,000 sneakers in a closet. Some people that's really well off. And they say, only thing I could do, I can't really enjoy the sneaker because I might wear it one time or 2 times and then throw it away. A pair, give it away because I don't want. I want to wear something new all the time. So that is a vanity. And yet you say, well, I'm comfortable that I could go in my closet. I got, thousands of this, thousands of that. And yet I can't enjoy one. When you have something that's counted, and then one of the things about the counting, when we learned in the book about Midbar, is that you count things that are precious to you. You categorize and itemize because they become precious to you. But when you start to don't pay a notice of account to anything, then what you have is something that you're no longer interested in. Keep going.
Verse 9, it reads, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him that is alone when he falleth, and have not another to lift him up.
All right. That means right then and there that, we are meant to be social creatures. When it said it was not good for man to be alone, because he needs somebody not only to bounce ideas off of, but to share the journey with. Share, the goal. That's what you're looking for. And so it's not about him being lonely. It's about him being fulfilled and complimented to do what you need to do for the greater good of the Most High. So that's what it's about. So if you have a group working together, and one of the things about when we read about and we compare the Sidra with Bamidbar and their standards is that I'm in the South because I'm the best that you need in this position. I can hold this position best over here. I'm qualified for it. I got the temperament for it. I got the characteristics for it. So everybody is put according to their characteristic and position, by the Creator. But we're gonna read a little bit further. Finish this out.
Verse 10, For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow, but woe to him
Uh-huh.
that is alone when he falleth, and have not another to lift him up. Verse 11.
All right, that means you need some help. So sometimes people say that live by themselves for a long time and say, I don't know, but I need somebody to make a phone call. You find people that wind up dead in their own apartment for till their body started to be foul odor. And then say, well, I haven't seen so and so for a while, and then you realize that somebody need to make a phone call. That person can't make the phone call because they already made transition, but you need somebody, and then that person can't bury themselves. You need somebody to at least bury them. If the person falls sick, they need somebody to help them up and take them to the hospital because they can't take themselves to the hospital. So one thing, when people say they don't need anyone, then that person, I'm very leery of when you say you don't need anyone, because everybody, we are put here to need someone. Continue.
Verse 11, it reads, again, if two lie together, then they have warmth. But how
Uh-huh.
can one be warm alone?
Keep going.
If a man prevail against him that is alone, two shall withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken.
Not that it won't be broken, but it's very difficult. It's very difficult because now you got a team effort. That's why when it says, one should taste 1,000, five should taste 1,000, whatever, something like that. And 100 should chase 10,000, something like that. No, five should chase 100 and 100 should chase 10,000. So that means that the efforts of the group is multiplied exponentially to be able to, accomplish the goal. And that's what it's all about there, a group effort. All right, continue.
Verse 13, it reads, better is a poor and wise child than an old and foolish king, who knoweth how to receive admonition.
Hold on, read that there. Who knows not?
Better is a poor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Better is a poor and wise child than an old and foolish king, who knoweth not how to receive admonition anymore.
All right, there you go. All right, right there. Hold it right there. All right. So that means right then and there that a wise child, he gonna grow up to be somebody. He's not gonna cause a problem. But a foolish king runs unchecked. And that's why it says a wise child is better than a foolish king, because who gonna be able to stop him? From doing what they want to do, because the king is the highest physical authority on in his kingdom. So nobody overrides him. Even though you might tell him stuff, only God could override him in that sense. That's why it says, and he refused, to receive, he don't want to receive, admonishment. You can't tell him, no, that's beneath you. That's not good for you. You can't tell him stuff like that, because all he's gonna see was right in his own eyesight. All right. 14th verse.
Verse 14 reads, for out of prison he came forth to be king, although in his kingdom he was born poor.
Hold it right there. Is that out of prison? You know what I mean? What they're talking about. How did the king come out of prison? What it is that he didn't have no authority to do what he wanted to do all the time. So that was like a prison. Like a child and said, I can't do this. My parents put me in check. My uncles put me in check. My aunts put me in check. My grandmama put me in check. Now they done left the scene. I'm the guy in charge. All them check moves they had, all them fences they had, I'm tearing down. So that's what it's talking about. A guy here that that becomes a foolish individual. He get to the place of authority, and then said, look, now nobody can stop me from doing what I want to do. So he become more tyrannical. That's why he look at the discipline. Some people look at discipline as a prison instead of a correction. So let's go a little bit further. What it says?
It reads, verse 15, I saw all the living that walk under the sun, that they were with the child. The second that was to stand up in his stead. There was one end of all the people, even of all them whom he did.
There was no end. All right, 16.
16. There was no end of all the people, even of all them whom he did lead. Yet they that come after shall not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and a striving after wind.
And that's something. All right. Nobody like him. When he going, it's a good riddance. You know, good. So, you know, I mean, you know, when you have a despot and he leave, the only satisfaction that people have is that he's finally gone. You know, it's finally gone. It's almost like that Wizard of Oz picture, you know, the Wicked Witch of the West is dead, you know. So, you know, that's when people celebrate. And they're celebrating, you know, not that they miss you, but they finally got rid of you. And that's a hard homecoming, you know, to leave behind. All right. Continue.
Last verse. Guard thy foot when thou goest to the house of God, and be ready to hearken. It is better than when fools give sacrifices, for they know not that they do evil. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. All right. So it said, make sure you watch your step. That's period. What it's saying. You know, when you go to the sanctuary of the Creator, you know, and be ready to listen, you know, be ready to hearken. It is better than when fools give sacrifices, for they know not that they will do that they do evil. See, in other words, you got to be able to monitor yourself and also know when you're doing wrong. Some people don't know when they're doing wrong, don't believe they're doing wrong. No matter what you tell them, they don't want to hear it, acknowledge it. But when you acknowledge that you have flaws, you could become a better individual once you acknowledge you have flaws. Correction and change is never, ever comfortable, but it's more often necessary for the long term. So I hope you got some of what I said. Any mistakes been my own, and I know I might have went kind of fast through some stuff, but it's just go over with your various leaders and teachers, and I pray that everybody, you know, first I'm gonna say Shalom Aleichem, and I pray that everybody by the time you see this here had a good Shavuot, because it's the most important time, and say early Shabbat Shalom. Bye.
Sorry about that. The microphone was off. Sorry about that, family. The microphone was off. Yes, the family, the Hebrew family of Charlotte will be having a family day on July 5th. This is all in culmination with the Unity Weekend, which will begin on July 4th, they'll be having a dinner dance on July 4th. So on the 5th, there's going to be a concert, July 5th, at Charlotte Mecklenburg Academy, 5833 Millhaven Lane. It's going to be entertainment, it's going to be a family day, and there's going to be a concert. So to all artists out there that would like to express themselves and the praises to the Most High God, you could contact me at 347-622-9090, as I will be heading that part of the weekend in terms of the concert. Also, I don't want to advertise the other part because it has to do with money, but I'm going to advertise the Shabbat Kavod, and being that this is going to be aired on the Shabbat day, I don't want to be in violation. So Shabbat Kavod 2024, honoring the Creator, praying, singing, dancing, and rejoicing as one. July 6, 2024, Breakfast at 11 a.m., services from 12:30 p.m. Charlotte, Mecklenburg Academy, 5833 Millhaven Lane, Charlotte, North Carolina. For info, you could contact Shakira, 980-230-8. No, let me repeat that number. You could contact Shakira at 980-230-6041 or Beritiel at 704-804-4304. Once again, you could contact Shakira at 980-230-6041 or Beritiel at 704-804-4304. For any of the events, any three of the events, they're going to have an event on the 4th that has to deal with money. I will announce that in a different setting when it's not going to be Shabbat. But all you have to do is search. We're going to put it on this page, on the D.C.B homepage, so that way you'll be able to see all three flyers and be able to join. So don't forget all singers, rappers, praise worshipers, you know, the people who have poems. We're going to have a concert. Please reach out to me at 347-622-9090 for the event that will be happening on July 5th. May everyone be blessed. May the Most High God bless each and every one of you with great sleep. Shabbat Shalom. And may the Creator of heaven and earth bless us all. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Let's get knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, His laws and commandments. The CHOKMAH BINAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the leaders. Yeah, knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, His laws and commandments. The CHOKMAH BINAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the